3 hostages held since the October 7th massacre, including the first American Israeli to be released by Hamas, are back with their families this morning. Newsmax senior correspondent John Huddy is live from Israel with more. John.
Yeah, Tom, it definitely wasn't the chaotic scene that we saw on Thursday with the release of hostages Thursday when they were paraded in front of a crowd and the crowd pushing in several thousand people on those hostages. Today, it was a much more controlled environment. That's because Israeli officials, including the prime minister, warned Hamas not to create such a dangerous, terrifying spectacle. That said, as you mentioned, one of those hostages released was 65-year-old Keith Siegel, a dual Israeli-U.S. citizen who was abducted on October 7th from the kibbutz Kfar Aza. He was turned over to the Red Cross at the port of Gaza in Gaza City in this kind of, again, a propaganda spectacle, this so-called quote-unquote release ceremony. He was paraded in front of a crowd before then being turned over to the Red Cross. He looked pale and thin, but otherwise was able to walk on his own, Tom. Siegel's wife, Aviva, was also taken hostage and released back in November of 2023. They have been reunited today. Also this morning, Hamas released 54-year-old Ofer Calderon and 35-year-old Yarden Bibas. Calderon's 2 children were released back in November of 2023, but we are still awaiting word about the fate of Yarden Bibas's wife, Cherie, and their children, little Kafir, who was only 9 months old when he was abducted, the youngest hostage taken, and his brother Ariel, who was 4 at the time. Hamas says that they were killed in captivity, but there remains a collective hope here, Tom, and we talked about this last night, that they are still alive. However diminished that may be at this point, people are still hoping, and Israel is putting pressure on Hamas to release any and all information about the Bibas family. In exchange, as part of this phase 1 of this ceasefire and the hostage exchange, Israel released 183 Palestinian prisoners. We thought it was only 100, but we found out today that it was 183, several doing life sentences for terrorist attacks in Israel and the West Bank. One, actually, who was sentenced to 17 life sentences for killing and orchestrating a bombing that killed 17 people back in 2002. And one final note, the Rafah crossing in southern Gaza has been reopened, heading into Egypt to allow people, patients with medical conditions, to get treatment in Egypt. Tom, back to you.
Another momentous day in Israel, but the question will be whether or not we're going to be refighting this war all over again. John Huddy, as always, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.